Good morning, church family. Hey, it's Wednesday. Hoping to get this video posted by 9. I had a couple of different ideas about where to go with this morning's hopefully quick message. Just wanting to connect with you on these Wednesday mornings to be more consistent with this type of thing. It gives me a little bit of space to say some extra things, some extra thoughts, some stuff that might be outside messages. I know we're in Matthew 7 on Sunday, verses 7 to 12. This next chunk of Jesus' greatest sermon ever preached, his Sermon on the Mount. And so I feel like these Wednesdays kind of give me a little bit more leeway to maybe share a couple extra thoughts that I've had throughout the week, or things that I've experienced, or some other things I feel like God's sharing with me, or things I'm learning, or perhaps in this case, just some things I'm processing with some other people that I'm doing different studies and things with. So there's a couple of guys that we're doing a study in James right now. And I woke up this morning to a question, a comment on our study thread. And I was going to come to the office early and spend some time studying nuances of language, making sure I understood the Greek and what was being said. But then I thought maybe I should just do a video. So I had some other thoughts, but this morning it seems like this is the right way to go. So we're in James chapter 4, and the title of that, I'm reading out of the MEV, I'm reading this out of the ESV. When I do this study with the guys, the title in the ESV for this chunk of text is Warning Against Worldliness. Warning against worldliness, and then in the MEV it says friendship with the world. And so we get to this text, which is the question in James chapter 4 verse 4. A friend of mine shared this text. He shares it from the NIV. You adulterous people, James writes, you adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Latin would say enemy, Latin, enemy. It just means like it's a feeling or a condition of hostility. It means like hatred, okay? It means ill will, or it means animosity with God. So that's this word enmity. If you don't know, that's what it means. But that's what it means here. Don't you know that friendship with the world means hatred against God, means a condition or feeling of hostility against God, means ill will against God? Don't you know that friendship with the world means animosity against God? Okay, and then it goes on to say, therefore, I love that word. If you ever see that word in Scripture, go read what it's there for, and we'll get to that. Verses 1 to 3, I think, are key here. Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Again, you are, he's saying adulterous people. What James is talking about is, you got to remember, our relationship with Christ is like a marriage. So we are the bride of Christ, okay? That's what I love about marriage, the symbolism of our relationship between God and the symbolism of the relationship between God and us as believers, God and us as children, as His children, mimics that. The symbolism of marriage mimics this relationship, God and us as believers, His children. And so, he's addressing you adulterous people. He's saying that if you're a friend of the world in this case, and I'll get to that. It's coming in verses 1 to 3. I'm spinning a little bit here. I'm sorry. I just studied a little bit and then was like, just do a video. So I need an outline to follow. You adulterous people is really kind of refer to the first 3 verses in some way of what he says. So it's like we are, in a sense, we are cheating on God, okay? We're His bride, but there's something else that we are that we are in love with. There's something else that we are connected with. There's something else that we are a friend with. But friend, this word friendship, I want to get to that. Now, let's address the first part first. Here we go. You adulterers and adulteresses is what the modern English version says. The ESV says, where are we at? Verse 4. You adulterous people! Exclamation point. You adulterous people! He's excited. He's yelling. He's upset. Okay. You adulterers and adulteresses. You adulterers and adulteresses. Do you not know that the friendship with the world is enmity with God? Why is he calling them adulterers and adulteresses? Why is he calling us that? Or why is he calling people that? Why is he referring to them? James writing this letter, why is he referring to them that way? Verse 1 to 3. Which version should I read this in? I'll read this in the Modern English Version. It's right in front of me. Modern English Version is the plain language, updated, modern English translation of the King James. So they take the Old English out, okay? Now, the King James Version is not the best Bible. It's a translation, and it's not a terrible translation. It's really difficult to really understand if you don't understand Old English or are feeling like really diving into trying to figure out the nuances of those words. We don't speak that way, and so it's kind of an old translation for sure. If anyone tells you it's the only translation, just smile and nod and just disregard. Walk away. It's not. This modern English version is just a modernized version of the King James, okay? Modern English. He starts with this. Where do wars and fights among you come from? Where do wars and fights among you come from? Do they not come from your own lusts that war in your body? The ESV, English Standard Version, says, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? Let me just continue in the ESV. You desire and do not have, so you murder. Modern English says, you lust and do not have, so you kill. Verse 3, ESV. It's the rest of verse 2. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. The rest of verse 2 in Modern English. You desire to have and cannot obtain, you fight and war. Verse 3. I guess this isn't verse 3 yet. This continues in verse 2. ESV, you do not have because you do not ask. Modern English says, yet you do not have because you do not ask. And then he finishes with this, which I think is, and I'm going to read both verses. You ask, ESV, you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. Verse 3 in the Modern English says, you ask and do not receive because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your passions. Okay, so he's saying, where do these issues come from? What causes quarrels? What causes fights among you? He's talking to people. He's writing to people. He's writing to believers. Okay, what causes the issues and the fights and what causes the wars and the things among you? Aren't they coming from the desires and the lusts that are at war in your own body? You desire, you lust, you want, you covet, you have an insatiable appetite for, however you want to describe it. Isn't that where they're coming from, is what he says? And then he goes on to kind of explain. You lust and don't have, you desire and don't have, and so you murder to get it. If they have it, you kill them to get it. It reminds me of something that happens in The Hobbit. Is it The Hobbit? No, in The Lord of the Rings. They're in the extra, like the extended version movies. They're like nearly 4 hours long each one. I love them. There's a scene where we go back in time, like way back in time, 500 plus years. I can't remember the timeline right now. Almost 600 years, maybe. We go back in time and we see the creature Gollum before he becomes Gollum. His name is Smeagol, and he and his friend are in a boat and they're fishing, and it's Smeagol's birthday. We learn later, and his friend catches a fish. Well, they're tiny people, kind of like hobbits, but maybe not as small. They're small people, and his friend catches a fish and gets pulled off the boat and underwater, like the fish is pulling him. It's a funny scene. And he lets go of the pole because he's going to drown if he doesn't. And he ends up finding the ring, the one ring, okay? I'm not going to take too long here. Anyway, he comes up out of the water with it. It's in his hand. Smeagol comes over. Now, this ring it's meant to deceive. It's meant to create problems. It's a bad thing, this ring. It infects the people who have it, okay, who keep it and wear it, and it infects them. And Smeagol sees it, and now he wants it. So his friend has it. Smeagol wants it. The friend doesn't want to give it to him. He found it. Smeagol says, I want it because it's my birthday. So he has this desire. It's his birthday. He wants a gift. But his friend has the ring and won't give it to him. And so a struggle ensues, and what happens is Smeagol kills his friend to get the ring. Now, the ring infects him in this movie. It's creating the music and everything that's happening is creating this atmosphere. It's just infecting them both. They're both fighting. They're both trying to kill each other, actually. Smeagol's the one that succeeds. And so we have this idea that there's this desire and this lust and this, I need to have this thing within us, and we murder to get it because we don't have it, okay? You desire to have, you cannot obtain. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. We covet, we can't have, and so we fight and we quarrel because we both want it. You want to keep it, and I want to have it, and so we fight for it. And then he kind of slides this comment in. You ask because you do not have because you do not ask. Okay? And there's a whole more bits I can get into with that in terms of asking God, and are we asking out of a desire to have something that we don't need? Are we asking if we're praying and we're praying in accordance with the Holy Spirit that's working within us, the thing that we're praying for we'll have, or is it a selfish prayer? And there's a whole line of things that we could go into with that. When we pray for someone who's sick, are we praying for them because we simply don't want to lose them as a selfish part? There's a whole bunch of things. And so I don't want to get too deep into that. Because people get manipulated when it comes to faith and prayer and desire and want and have. And there's a whole line of the prosperity gospel that manipulates people into giving money. That's why, oh boy. All right, anyway, don't do it. The prosperity gospel is false. Stop following it, okay? I can name a bunch of people right now. I'm not going to do that. If you have questions, just text me, email, whatever. Just stay away from that. Falsity. I'm off track. Here we go. So he slides that in. You ask and do not. You do not have because you do not ask. Okay, and then he goes back. This is his point in sharing in verse 3. You ask and do not receive because you ask amiss. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. Okay? So there we are. We're fighting, we're quarreling. When we do ask, we're only asking because we want something. We desire something. That's why he calls them adulterous people. Because we are in love with something else, not God. We're seeking to have our desires and lusts fulfilled. We're coveting this thing and we're quarreling to get it. We're asking God to help us to get this thing because we want it. And so there's something that we love that is taking over our love from God. Does that make sense? So we're cheating on God in essence. And so he calls us this. And then we get to this verse 4. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes themselves an enemy of God. Remember, enmity with God means, if friendship with the world is enmity with God, it means a feeling or condition of hostility. It means hatred, ill will. It means animosity against God, okay? Friendship in the Greek is with the genitive of the object. The genitive of an object does a lot of different things in the Greek. It does. It describes. It has a descriptive kind of method to it. Describes or depicts a noun. So, like the house of blue describes the house as being a blue house. So, a blue house. Okay, or a chair is reclining. Or the chair of reclining describes that the chair is a recliner, okay? That's the genitive of description in terms of the object in the Greek. But the Greek genitive of the object also gives it possession, and it affects the relationship, and relationship and possession kind of go together. And this is where we're at here with this word friendship, okay? My watch is being weird. Okay. Friendship in the Greek is the word philia. It's in English we would spell it Philia. It's not philia. The accent's on the second I, so it sounds philia. Philia. It means, it comes from phileo, which means to befriend. It means to love, and it can mean to kiss, okay? Not in a weird way. But philia in the Greek means love. It means friendship. It means, where am I at? It means fondness. And then this is the point for James 4, verse 4. With the genitive of the object, friendship of the world being the object, okay? It's describing something about this friendship. Where philia involves adopting the world's interests. That's what James is saying. Philia involves adopting the world's interests. Okay? Do you not know that adopting the interests of the world is hatred with God? Does that make sense? The genitive of possession is used. It's used as an expression of the idea of ownership. So the genitive of the object here, the world is the object, and so this word philia, connecting with this word object in the Greek, is describing the idea of ownership. But it goes a little bit further because of this idea of friendship or relationship. Let's see. Well, that's more about description in terms of relationship. I'm looking up some definition of some of these nuances of these. There's a lot of stuff in the Greek. Probably is in English too. I read something this morning that there's like literally all the rules of English are broken. So there are rules when it comes to the English language, but then our English language even breaks all those rules. And so the Greek has a lot of rules and language too. I grew up speaking English, so I understand it. Anyway, there's this idea of ownership or deep connection. Okay, again, I think that's why he calls them, in this instance, in verses 1-3, refers to them as adulterous people. There's ownership, there's connection, there's marriage, there's relationship, there's closeness. If you want to call it covenant, call it covenant. There's something close. It is an Old Testament reference for sure. Covenant, God covenanted with Israel, God's people. Okay, and so we do that in relationship. We do that in our marriages. I covenant with my wife in before God, and so there's this covenant idea. Anyway, then it goes. The idea here and the point I'm getting to. Wow, I was going to make this 10 minutes. It's 20. The point I'm trying to get to here is my friend's concern is that he he asks God for happiness. He asks he wants his family to be happy. He wants to provide for his family. He wants to make his life peaceful. He wants to make the life of his family peaceful. He's working hard to provide. He's working hard to make a way. He wants his family to be happy here on earth. I mean, we all want to be happy in life. And so what he's reading into these words is, am I an enemy of God because I want those things? I want to enjoy my life. I want my family and I to be happy and provided for. I want to make life peaceful for my family here on earth. Does that make me an enemy of God? No, but maybe yes. It's, are you is friendship the world? Are you assuming the interests of the world in pursuit of, excuse me, are you one with, are you friends with the interests of the world? Are you in relationship with the world and what it wants and what it desires and what it expects and what it demands? Are you 100% involved with the world? Are you in that relationship, or are you in relationship with God? You cannot be in both. And I think that's James's main focus in what he's saying here, and why it's warning against worldliness, friendship with the world. This warning is, you can't be a friend of God and a friend. You can't be, let me use a different word. You can't be intimately, closely connected and involved with the world and be intimately and closely connected with God. You can't be both. That's why they're adulterous, right? You can't do both things. If you do that in a marriage relationship, you're committing adultery. Like, you can't do that. And so he's saying those two things can't exist. And in this case, if you're going to be in this close, intimate, connected relationship with the world and the world's interests, okay, you not only can't be in relationship with God, you can't be even, you're an enemy. You're an enemy with God. Therefore, he says, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. But let me say this. There's a lot of intention here. Heart intention, desire intention. If you feel like your desire for things in this world to be better and easier, just to be better and easier for your family, if that is your desire above all things and not relationship with God and them knowing God and you drawing closer to God in relationship, if that isn't more important than, this, I guess, baseline humanness of just wanting things to be as best as they can be and comfortable and everyone's happy. We're not all going to be happy, but if you want that above relationship with God, then yeah, you're an enemy of God. But if you just want those things for your family because you love them, but you are also in relationship with God and teaching them about God and drawing them close to God, and you are drawing close to God and understanding that life isn't always going to be easy and comfortable and great, but relationship with God can bring happiness and joy. Maybe not happiness always. That's the beauty of the Psalms, is you can lament and all sorts of things like that. And God understands, and we can be brokenhearted before God, and God will come and heal the brokenhearted. He'll come alongside us in our distress. And so I think the main point and idea here is your desire for a relationship with the world versus your desire with your relationship for a relationship with God. That you can't have both. So I feel like I'm spinning. I probably should redo this video. We have to be careful in how we're reading Scripture. So maybe this is one of those messages. It was like, yeah, maybe that is the truth. Maybe we are enemies of God. And if we are, and if we're willing to accept that and say, Lord, please forgive me, read to verse 6. Verse 6 in James chapter 4 says, but he gives more grace. That's ESV. MEV says, it's the same thing, but he gives more grace. God desires to be in relationship with us, and he wants the best for us, but the best for us is not what the world says is the best for us. And so we have to pursue God to truly understand and see what is the best for us. He is the best for us. Loving God first is the best for us. Loving others second is the best for us. And so if you love God, brother, if you're watching, if you love God, and I'm gonna answer this here in a minute. If you love God, then you're going to love your family, and you're going to want to provide for them, and you're going to want to do your best to keep them and make them happy and peaceful and create a great life for them here on earth. You're going to want to do that. But you're also going to understand that things happen and bad things happen and not comfortable things happen and sad things happen. And sometimes feels like peace is being destroyed and wrecked around you, but because you're not reliant on those things aren't first, God is first, then you know that your foundation is always solid and strong. And so you have the ability to remain, to be steadfast, unwavering. And so I guess maybe this video is just a challenge. Maybe it's an affirmation. Maybe it's just a mess. That could be too. Just getting back into the groove of this thing 27 minutes later. I hope you have a great day. I do. God bless you. God keep you. Keep drawing closer to him in a relationship. Literally, there's so many resources out there to try to figure out the kind of the wording of things. I highly suggest it. God bless you guys. I hope this video isn't as messy as it felt. Love you guys.